Politicians and celebrities make deals behind closed doors, promises broken, and their income soars. Hidden agendas run the grand parade. In the circus, choose a masquerade. Believe me, I wouldn't lie. I've been given money, power, and fame to keep you in line.
Greetings, everyone. I am here today to talk about situationships, avoiding them, the psychology of situationships, how people can end up in this. And before we get started, I just wanted to make a little disclaimer that if you're the type of person who believes that you can do whatever you want and people have to bend to your will and give you what you deserve just because you want it, and that, you know, it's modern times, you shouldn't have to play games or do something that you don't feel like doing, because people should just love you for who you are right now, no matter what. And you know, if you have any of these core beliefs, this is not going to be a good fit for you, because it involves, you're going to have to change a little bit. You're going to have to realize that you were lied to about a lot of things in life to end up to the place where you have ever even entertained a situationship. So we're going to have to break some of that programming and give you the honest truth of the situation. Now, if you want to do something like, I don't know, be very promiscuous for like 10-20 years and then hope to settle down when you're, not looking as great, and think, well, now I'm worth more because I have more money. That's also not going to work out for this situation, because that's not the goal. The goal for people who are interested in this are people who want to actually get married, have a family, have kids, that have a 2-parent functioning, healthy, thriving household. So if that is what your ultimate goal is, and not anything else, or not any of the lies that you were led to believe from the media, from all the things that we've been dealing with for the last 20, 30, 60 years even, then whatever. Let's just get to it. All right. So let's talk about what a situationship is. It's a very modern thing. It's a very dangerous, sad thing that's happened since we broke down all of the status quo of how relationships used to be carried out. It used to be 2 families coming together, and the families would vet each other for the sake of the children. That doesn't happen anymore. Now you're kind of like on your own. Good luck. And for those of you who don't have good family backgrounds, it's going to be extra hard on you, because you're going to have to do some legwork in order to avoid situationships and make yourself in a good situation to get a real relationship and a hopeful marriage down the line. So let's get into what are some of the psychological aspects that can be damaging from a situationship? Lack of clarity. So there's a lot of ambiguity. You don't know where you stand, and maybe somebody or both people are too scared to like ask, like, what's going on here? What are we doing? There's a lot of anxiety. An unclear status can cause extreme anxiety in the person who actually wants a relationship. That's why it's not a good idea to do anything with someone that is not talking about a future with you. The types of people who end up in situationships, okay, that's going to be your anxious attachment style. These are people who have fears of abandonment. They crave like closeness. They're very leading to the acceptance of non-committal terms, even though that's what they secretly really, really want. So these are the people who will kind of like just say, oh yeah, I'm not looking for anything serious, when deep inside they're really hoping that that person changes their mind and wants to give them something serious. Or they're like the cool girl problem, which is like they pretend to just be going with the flow. And that's a great way to become a victim of a narcissist or somebody who's avoidantly attached. Now let's get into avoidant attached. What is that? So an avoidant attachment refers to somebody who they don't want the pressure of commitment, and they like emotional distance. So they don't want an emotional connection. They just might want a physical connection with you. these are people who probably have a lot of trauma growing up, so they probably felt like they couldn't count on anyone. So if anyone comes to them with problems or emotions or need for connection from them, they're like, figure it out yourself. Like, these are the kids that weren't hugged. Maybe they were smothered by their mothers. So when they finally go out there dating, they don't want to deal with another woman's emotion. They have had too much trauma from women's emotions being their mother's emotions, having to deal with, maybe take care of her emotions. Maybe they come from a home where it's a single mother, and the mother parentifies a child, makes them kind of like their pseudo husband. So the child has a lot of stress around emotions from women. So that would be someone who's avoidantly attached. And I'm not saying that these people are like, don't date them at all, whatever. I'm just saying that you need to know what somebody's attachment style is before you get involved in any sort of relationship with them. And you can kind of tell if you're trying to say, what are we? You're trying to like signal overtly or covertly, like, where is this going? And you're not getting anything. Or you hear things like, oh, I just want to see where things take us, whatever. Anything to delay, that's probably an avoidant. Thank you. So you want to avoid getting stuck with an avoidant for a long-term relationship, because they can take years or decades of your life. And if they don't work on themselves, these are not the type of people that you want to be in a long-term relationship with. And anxiously attached people, it can be like you came from like a family where you didn't get like hugs, or your emotional needs were not met, or maybe they put you into daycare too early, or there's like a number of reasons where like there wasn't that closeness when you needed it when you were a child, and you learned that like you have to like worry about people leaving you, right? So like something that can cause anxious attachment that people don't really think about is changing nannies, changing caregivers. One time you have this caregiver, the next day it's another one, and you have to mourn the loss before the age of 7. Anyone who's in the child's life, if they lose them, they mourn the loss. And if it happens enough, or if it was a close enough person to them, that loss can last a lifetime, and it can set them up for anxious attachment styles where they're always like, I can't get too close because it's going to happen again. I can't get too close. It's going to happen again. I don't want to get hurt. So like, these are also people, this is like one that I figured out. I don't know if anyone's talked about these. These are people that don't want pets. When they get pets, they will love that pet. They will love that pet. They will give that pet anything. But then if they see themselves like too much, they might push the pet away. Like, no, I don't want this. But, secretly when no one's looking, they'll like give the pet, treats and stuff like that. And a lot of, online, you see a lot of like posts of the dad or the mom that didn't want the pet, and then they're like doting over the pet. That's an anxiously attached person. Something happened and they don't want to get hurt again. And an anxious attachment could come from losing somebody, like maybe somebody passed away, maybe somebody really important to them, they lost, or they moved away and they lost all their friends, and now they're like afraid to get close to someone. So that's an anxious attachment. And those people are drawn like a magnet to avoidant attachment people, which you need to be very careful of. So anyone who has a fear of commitment phobia, a fear of losing their freedoms or getting hurt, which is just another way of saying an anxious or an avoidant attachment person, like they don't want that because it's going to hurt them. Any sort of fears of intimacy, like maybe they'll have sexual relations with someone, but they don't want the emotional intimacy. That's too much for them. That's their line. And then you also have to realize that there's a lot of cultural shifts going on where, the rise of dating apps and the cultures that value casual, overcommitted relationships, or they say, mess around before you settle down. These types of cultural influences can prevent people who otherwise might have been really good and secure and stable. They can push them to becoming avoidance. So that's not a good thing. So you want to make sure that the person that you're dealing with has not normalized situationships. You want to make sure that they understand, like, this is not a normal situation to do something intimate with someone that you do not care for, or that you are not also emotionally tied to their well-being, which is very important. And a lot of people who are avoidant will say, well, she said she just wants something casual. That's an anxiously attached girl or guy, it can happen both ways. That's someone who really wants the emotional connection, but they're afraid to say that they want that because then you'll leave them. And that's another trauma for them to deal with. So we want to move away from temporary fulfillment, because situationships can give like the sense of some sort of emotional satisfaction, but it's really not that. And it can also give you some form of validation, like, oh, somebody finds me attractive or wanted or whatever. Somebody's calling me, even though like I feel lonely and empty inside. Somebody's calling me every night. They're not calling because they care about you. They're calling for something else. But you can trick yourself into thinking it's at least something, when in reality, it's negative. It's not at least something. It's a negative. It's a net negative all the way around. These things can lead to a lot of psychological drawbacks, like emotional roller coasters. When you have that instability in a relationship, you're going to feel good. And then when you feel good, you're going to remember, oh, this person doesn't like me enough to commit to me. And now you're going to feel bad and despair and mourn it. And you're going to keep repeating that every time you see them. Another thing is going to increase low self-esteem if you really want a relationship. So over time, you're going to have a lot of self-doubt. You're going to have to gaslight yourself to saying, well, nobody's happy, or everybody's in bad relationships, or nobody gets what they want, or all the married people must be cheating on each other. You're going to lie to yourself to make you feel better. And then we have cognitive dissonance. You might say you want the committed relationship, but you're settling for a situationship. And this is going to lead to internal conflict. So decision-making boundaries. We need to realize that you have a fear of losing or a fear of connection. So you need to deal with that wound. And then we have to realize, for those who are anxious, you need boundaries. You need very clear boundaries so you don't end up in a situationship, because it's going to very detrimentally hurt people who are anxiously attached. And these people always end up together. So whenever you're like, oh, no, they were okay with it being casual. They said they're okay with being casual. That means you're the avoidant and they're the anxious, and you are hurting them. So you can justify it in your mind, but they said this, but they said this. That doesn't mean anything. That's not what's going on. And a lot of people will gaslight themselves because they don't want to be the bad guy. They're like, well, they said this, therefore I'm not responsible. You are responsible because you are using a human. So you're responsible for that. That's a psychopathic behavior. No, it doesn't just happen. You didn't trip and fall in. It doesn't just happen. Anyways. So let's see. All right. So a lot of people with anxious attachment style, they will get into this situation because they're hoping that something committed will come out of it. And they're also seeking that validation. They're like, if I'm a cool girl and I act like I'm detached, they'll like me. And eventually they'll realize I'm the one and want to commit to me. This happens a lot. Then you could have two people who are anxious and they're both afraid. But if they had just had the conversation, they'd realize that it would be okay. Yes, we have to worry about everybody's feelings. And you have to also remember that 90% of communication is nonverbal. So what people say doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Learning to speak is a relatively new thing as far as humans go, like 100 million years or whatever, how long we've been around. Speaking language is not highly evolved. People lie all the time. So you cannot trust what people say, because a lot of narcissists, liars, manipulators will use words to control people. And then everybody gets hurt. So another thing is, like, let's say you find this anxiously attached person, but they tell you that they're totally fine with having this cash thing. Like, this is totally fine. But then that person also happens to be a little cray-cray. So what is that cray-cray person going to do when they finally realize that they can't win you over, that you actually meant what you said? You don't really like them. Now that person can go crazy, slash your tires, you catch a case. It can get really bad for you. You need to avoid these people. You need to avoid situationships. There is no such thing as consent in this case. Like, you just got to stop with this stuff. You have to stop doing that because they could be crazy and they could be lying. So we need to get rid of this whole casual hookup culture bullcrap because it's ruining everybody's mental health, and the outcomes are in and the outcomes are bad. Antidepressant use up, children down, people are crazy up, everybody's chronically online, insane, complaining, and narcissistic. Everything is wrong. We need to get everybody married with kids. Busy people with their families are always happier. So if everybody's busy with a nice family, we're all going to be better overall. And we don't really want like people to feel like negative emotions like this. This is like a very bad psychological experience on both ends, because the person who is avoidant, they're never going to experience really close companionship because they're trying to, again, avoid that situation because it was too much for them, maybe when they were a child or they were hurt or whatever when they were growing up. So let's see. What are some strategies that we can do so that we don't end up in this situation? Well, the first thing is, and I've said this before, it takes, according to science, not me, so don't come at me, it takes around 90 days for a guy to fall in love, right? And that means exposure. You can't see him once and then wait 90 days and then sleep with him. No. Or whatever. You can't do that. You have to see someone regularly for 90 days. Before, we used to have networks of friends and we would just be around people hanging out all the time. Like, that's how I met everyone. It was like mutual friend groups and bigger friend groups. We'd go to parties and then you would see someone over and over, weekend after weekend, and then they'd become familiar to you. And then maybe after 3 to 6, 8 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, then you would like, one of you would ask the other one out, right? So you knew each other for over 90 days, which is key. So if you want to create this, you need to make sure that you are not sleeping with somebody. If you can't have them in your friend group, then you got to say, hey, look, I'm looking for something serious. I'm not going to stop you from seeing other people or dating other people, but I would like us to be friends first. That means you're not asking them to take you on dates. They're not paying anything. So there's no financial loss on their part. All they're doing is losing time hanging out with you. That's it. You're both losing time by hanging out with each other. So you would go like maybe to movies and then leave. No like hooking up, no making out. There's nothing like that. You're just trying to get a base of friendship to see compatibility, right? Can you guys do that? I know it's crazy. That's how we used to do it back in the olden days. We used to like talk to each other. I mean, wild, right? Like, what? Talk to each other? I know. It's insane. You guys don't know how to talk to each other. I'm finding that out more and more. Gen Z, come on, guys. You got to talk. So you have to become friends first. Friends first, 3 to 6 months. Regularly see them. If you are like, let's say you're a guy and you're like, but I have needs, bruh. Fine. Go get your needs met with somebody who's easy. I don't really care. I mean, there's always been loose girls since the dawn of time, and that's what they used to do with them. I don't want to know about it, whatever. But I'm just saying, for like somebody who wants marriage, you do not want to be one of those girls. You want to be the type of girl that they already like you. Maybe they fall in love with you and then you start dating. And the only way to do that is to be friends first. Hang out with them. Oh, and stop this. Okay, look, Simperius, you need to stop this virgin, blah, 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 blah. What happens if there's a girl that she was with her high school boyfriend for 6, 7 years, but she knew him 4 or 5 years before she slept with him? Does that mean if, he leaves her that she has to immediately open her legs because somebody said hi? That's exactly the type of person that ladies need to avoid. Anyone who tells you, well, you slept with someone before, therefore I need it now, that's a psychopath. That's a sociopath. That is someone who is just trying to use you and lose you. That's a pump and dump chump. We do not want no pumps and dump chumps. All right. Look, ideally, you want to be a virgin. You always want to be a virgin until you're married. But I understand, especially like when you're young, if you don't have a father, if, there's a lot of chaos growing up at home, that you might slip up. Hopefully, you do it with someone you've known for years and you date them for a long time first. But otherwise, listen. Oh my gosh. Anyways, but otherwise, you need to get to know someone first. You need to make sure, look, whatever mistakes you've done in the past, you are not going to deal with that mistake for the rest of your life. And look, just don't date imperious. That's imperious. You don't need to date people like him. You need to date good people who are kind, who want to take the time to get to know you before they try to, use you for your body. No, Simperius, I will not drop the link. And I think you know why. All right. So anyways, we're going to become friends first. Friendsies. We're going to get to know them. We're going to see, how do they act around other people? Can they carry conversations? Do they make good eye contact? A lot of people are weird now. They're chronically online. They're a little on the spectrum. Just got to see, like, we're on the spectrum and if that's kosher with you. And if it is, we're all good. Moving on to the next thing. So what is the family life of this person? You got to stop sleeping with people who you don't know their families. All right. After you become friends with them, now you're getting to the point where it's like, hey, come over, meet my dad. Hey, come over, meet my mom. Oh, let's hang out with me and my brother, me and my cousins, whatever. Get the families involved. Their family, your family, get them involved. That's step number 2. After you become friends for 90 days, family. We need to get the family. Then, do they get along well? Is this going to make sense? Because a lot of times people will, especially bad people, will date someone for a long time. But if you try to get them to meet the family, which is a little bit more like leading somewhere, they won't do it and they'll run away or they'll make up an excuse. You need to know that immediately. Before you sleep with someone, does this person take you seriously? Will they meet the family? Will they be cool around the family? Will there be any problems? How do they act with your dad or your uncles? You need to know that. Is this a pump chump or is this a good guy? Anyways, and then we got to move on to the what's next. So after the family situation, and okay, for the girls that don't have a dad, they don't have a good family situation, we're trying to understand that a lot of people don't have that luxury. So what they need to do is they need to get their uncles, they need to get their older male cousins, some sort of male in the family involved to come help you vet these guys, decide who is the guy who is worth marrying, who wants to marry you, right? And you have to make it hard for people to have access to you. So yeah, this sounds like a lot of work. It's called courting. I know you guys don't know what that is, but this is something that has been around since the dawn of time, and we've forgotten about it because we thought we didn't need it. We thought it was old-fashioned. Well, it turns out it's not old-fashioned. We really need it, or we get really screwed up with society. So go find somebody, and maybe it's not a family member. Maybe it's like your boss. Maybe it's like a male coworker that's like treats you like their kid or something. You need to find somebody who can help you vet a guy, and nobody vets a guy like another guy because they know exactly what kind of guys are trash, and they know exactly what kind of guys will marry you and have kids with you, right? So, okay. So now they've met the family. They've been vetted by the guys in your family. So now you're going to have to talk. Like, where do you see this going? What's going on here? What are you interested in? Like, how many kids do you want to have? Where do you want to live? Blah, blah, blah. You need to have these conversations. Notice how nobody's spread their legs. I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, but we're not doing that yet. So you're asking them all these questions. What do you think about this? What about that? Blah, 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 blah. And then you kind of there's books on 100, 200 questions to ask someone before you marry them. This needs to be before you sleep with them. I'm sorry. Why are you going to wait until you're engaged to ask people these questions? That means you'd have a body count of 1 billion, at least how things are going nowadays with the swipey apps. So do it before you date them. Seriously, just do it. whatever. A lot of people will lie to try to sleep with you, but once they realize there's so many hurdles involved, there's so many steps involved to get you to that point, the guys who are just pump and dump will be gone. And I know you're going to be like, because they're super hot and super fun and interesting and fun, blah, blah, blah. You don't need those people. Those people, when you're young, you think that's impressive. But when you get older, you realize you need stability. You need a strong person. You need someone who has self-control. Imagine being stuck with someone, married to someone, kids with someone who has no freaking self-control. This is the type of person which any hooker off the street can go and steal him away from you, right? This is the type of person that has no integrity, no moral code, nothing. You do not want that. You want someone with discipline, with control, who can wait for something, who knows good things come to those who wait. I'm pretty sure patience is a virtue. So you need to have patience and they need to have patience, and you both need to be virtuous. So now after some time goes by, you guys start talking about like what you want out of life, how many kids, blah, 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 blah. Now you can be like, all right, let's date, but you have to set a time limit. Before you commit to someone, you have to set a time limit and you have to tell them, right? Oh my God, the anxious people are freaking out. Go ahead and freak out. You have to tell them. If you don't tell them, you have no ability to complain about your life being shit. You just don't. So you have to tell them, look, I will date you for X amount, like a year, maybe 2 years tops. If you're very, very young, if you're under 25, you can do 2 years. After that, no more than 1 year. Never spend more than 1 year exclusive with someone. That's all the time you need. And every single guy that I know, all my guy friends that got married, they knew within 3 months that was their wife. 3 months. Any guy who says, I need more time, I need to think about, I need to get my money right, he's not in love with you, pump and dump chump. Leave him. Imperious, no woman wants to be with you. So what are you talking about, boy? Anyways, so just remember, you need to absolutely vet people before they touch your body, because your body is sacred. And despite what all the propaganda told you, that it's just it's a place for, I don't know what the chick online just did, like a 1,000 or something guys in 24 hours or something. These people are demonic. You need to stop listening to people like that. They're dead in the eyes. And yeah, you could go point out a few cases of prostitutes that ended up with kids and families, but you have to look at them 10, 20, 30 years down the line. Are they still happy? Are the kids okay? We already know how to raise good kids, and it does not have anything to do with promiscuous parents. It has to do with people who put family first, family over their needs, right? Not their needs, their desires, and usually demonic desires. Let's be clear. So what we're going to do is we give them a time limit, 1 year, right? Let's stay 1 year, unless you're very, very young, but we're not talking about that. At that time, you have to be like, look, if you don't want to marry me, if I'm not engaged by this date, we'll just part ways as friends. And then you have to be of your word. As soon as that date rolls around, they're probably going to, if they're trying to use you or waste your time, they're probably going to be like, oh, she'll forget, she'll extend it, and I'll get another couple years miles out of this one. No. As soon as that date goes around, you pick up your stuff and go, and you don't look back, and you never regret it, because that was not for you. The end. So rinse and repeat. That's why you cannot find yourself. You cannot travel the world before you get married. You cannot get your education before you start dating. You cannot climb the corporate ladder before you start dating, because you have very little time. You're your hottest at 24, 25. I don't care what plastic surgery you do. That's when you're the most fertile. That's the most agency you'll have over choosing someone. Do not waste time doing everything else. The most important thing, if you want kids and a family, is to nail that down immediately. So stop wasting your time. Stop pretending like you have time in the world. Stop going, technology is going to bail me out. Stop going, I'm just going to freeze this. Stop going, I'm just going to get this. And no, absolutely not. And when you look at cases of very successful women that got married later in life and whatever, they're usually very, very upper class. The majority of people are middle class and lower class, right? And it gets more and more lower every day with inflation. You cannot compare yourself to really upper class people who may or may not have tons of money and family connections and plastic surgeries and stuff like that. You are not that. So please stop looking up to these people. They are rotting your brains. You need to look at people who are your socioeconomic status right now, not your dreams of, oh, if I get this job, I'll be this. No, you're not. Stop thinking that, because it's where you grow up, because how you're going to act and who you attract is very, very determined by where you are in life right now, not in some fictitious future that you may or may not create. I know a lot of friends that they were from really good families or whatever, and then they came down to Miami and they were very beautiful. They came down like when they're 19 or whatever, 21, and they would go and work at these like fashion agencies and modeling agencies. And then they would get really high paying jobs with like some famous, ritzy, very wealthy billionaire guy, whatever. And maybe they'd get like pumped and dumped by a few people who are very high up, thinking, well, now I've made it. Now I'm the same as these people. But little did they know, as soon as they turned 25, they got fired from those jobs because they were no longer young and cute. They were no longer something that these guys in charge wanted to look at, quite frankly. And they wanted some new, cuter girl to come in. So then these girls are back on a plane, back to where they came from, right? All that job experience doesn't matter anymore, because you know what? That was something that only happened to you because you were young and hot in that moment of your life. So yes, you can come over here. You can, when you're really, really, really hot, you can make a living for 5-10 years tops. And then you have to realize that now you're older, you're less able to settle down with somebody, and you just waste a lot of time. Now, if you're the type of person who has no morals and you want to do some crazy stuff on the side and ruin your reputation that way, like, this is not for you. This is not going to help you. I don't think I can help you. I am not sending a message to my younger self. I got married very young. Thank ya. I've been married for a very long time. So that's, I think that's a really good place to end it. Are there any other tips that I would give? Okay. The other thing that I would say is, definitely if you came from a very bad family situation or something, don't curse yourself. And people who curse themselves say things like, I don't need a man, or I'm an independent woman, or I don't care about his money. I just want someone who's, you're cursing yourself when you say these things. Or if you complain about your childhood, if you complain about how so-and-so treated you, you complain about your ex-boyfriend, you're this, you're that, stop complaining. People who complain do not get securely attached partners for life. Complainers never win, okay? Complainers get people who have no choice and they're not high up on like the people wanting them, okay? So if you are a complainer, you need to realize that's your problem. That's nobody else's problem, and you need to fix that. The other thing is, never go into any relationship blaming them for something somebody else in your past did to you, whether it was your dad, whether it was your uncle, whether it was your ex-boyfriend or your other ex-boyfriend, or blah, 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 blah. I don't care how many people hurt you. The new person in front of you is not them, and they do not deserve to pay for whatever so-and-so did before. So never, ever punish someone for something somebody else did to you. You need to grow up. It's time to be an adult and take responsibility for how you treat people, your actions, your emotions, your trauma, your inner workings, your attachment styles, all that stuff. We can't control what happened to us when we were children, and we can't change the past and what we've already done. But you can stop ruining your future by what happened to you in your past. So that's something I just want to leave everybody with. before I go. And if you found this helpful and you like more of this content, please get to the comments. Please leave me a comment. It really helps me out. And like, subscribe, and share. And if you have any ideas for another live stream, get to the comments also and let me know. And the last thing is, please join the Discord if you have not joined the Discord. I'm going to put that now in the live chat. So hope to see you guys next time, and thanks for hanging out. Bye.
Start the revolution, let the truth begin. Wake up, they're feeding lies. Control the media's got you hypnotized. Trust authority, they'll take your soul. Break the chains, find your own control.